Jesus, I surrender all to Him. I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him in His presence daily.
The 6th of November 1899, Volume 3, Purity of Intention. This morning, as adorable Jesus came and transported me outside of myself, He showed me streets full of human flesh. What a ruthless slaughter! It is horrifying to think about it. Then He showed me how something was happening in the air, and many would die suddenly. I have also seen this since the month of March. I began to pray Him according to my usual way, that He would placate Himself and spare His very images torment so cruel, wars so bloody. And since He had the crown of thorns, I removed it from His head to place it on mine, and this in order to placate Him more. But to my highest sorrow, I saw that almost all the thorns would remain broken inside His most holy head, and so very little was left for me to suffer. Jesus remained serious. Almost without paying attention to me, He transported me again into my bed, and since I had my arms on the cross, suffering the pains of the crucifixion which He Himself had shared with me before, He took my arms and united them together, binding them with a little rope of gold. Not paying attention to what this might mean, in order to break that severe air that He had, I said to Him, "My most sweet love, I offer you these movements of my body that you yourself made me do, as well as all the others which I myself can do, for the sole purpose of pleasing you and glorifying you. Ah, yes, I wish that the movements of my eyelids, of my eyes, of my lips, and of all of myself were also made for the sole purpose of pleasing you alone. Let it be, O good Jesus, that all my bones and my nerves may resound among themselves, and with clear voices may prove my love to you." And He said to me, "Everything that is done for the sole purpose of pleasing me shines before me in such a way as to draw my divine gazes, and I like it so much that to those actions, be they even a batting of eyelashes, I give the value as if they were done by me. On the other hand, those other actions, good in themselves and even great, but which are not done for me alone, are like gold that is muddy and full of rust, which does not shine, and I do not so much as look at them. And Lord, how easy it is for our actions to be dirtied with dust." And He, "One should not care about dust, because it can be shaken off, but what one must care about is the intention." Now, while we were saying this, Jesus was busy binding my arms. I said to Him, "Oh, please, Lord, what are you doing?" And He, "I am doing this because when you are in that position of crucifixion, you come to placate me. And since I want to chastise the people, I am binding them." Having said this, He disappeared. End of the reading. The 6th of November 1905, Volume 6. In His pains, the purpose of Jesus was primarily that of satisfying the Father in everything and for all, and then the redemption of souls. While thinking about the passion of our Lord, I said to myself, how I would like to enter the interior of Jesus Christ, to be able to see everything He did, and to see what was most pleasing to His heart, so that I too may do it and mitigate His pains by offering Him what pleased Him the most. While I was saying this, moving in my interior, blessed Jesus told me, My daughter, my interior was occupied with those pains primarily to satisfy my dear Father in everything and for all, and then for the redemption of souls. The thing that pleased my heart the most was to see the satisfaction that the Father showed to me in seeing me suffer so much for love of him, in such a way that he gathered everything within himself. Not even a breath or a sigh was dispersed, but he gathered everything in order to be satisfied and to show me his satisfaction. And I was so satisfied by that if I had nothing else, the sole satisfaction of the Father was enough for me to be satisfied in what I suffered, while, on the other hand, much of my passion was dispersed on the part of creatures, and the satisfaction of the Father was so great that he poured in torrents the treasures of his divinity into my humanity. Therefore accompany my passion in this way, for you will give me much pleasure. End of the reading. The 6th of November 1906, Volume 7. The faith and the hope of the soul who lives in the divine will. I was praying according to my usual way, that whatever I do it as if I were doing it with our Lord and with his own intentions. So I was reciting the Creed, and without realizing it myself, I was saying that I intended to have the faith of Jesus Christ to repair for so many unbeliefs, and to impetrate the gift of faith for all. At that moment, he moved in my interior and told me, "You are wrong. I had neither faith nor hope, nor could I have them, because I was God himself. I was only love." On hearing love, I liked so much being able to be only love that, not paying attention, I spoke some more nonsense, which was, "My Lord, I too would like to be like you, all love and nothing else." And he added, "This is my goal, and this is why I often speak to you about perfect resignation, because by living in my will, the soul acquires the most heroic love and reaches the point of loving me with my own love. She becomes all love, and becoming all love, she is in continuous contact with me. So she is with me, in me, and for me. She does everything I want, nor does she move or desire anything but my will, in which all the love of the Eternal One is enclosed, and in which she herself remains enclosed. By living in this way, the soul almost comes to the point of dissolving faith and hope, because as she comes to live of divine will, the soul no longer feels in contact with faith and hope. Since she lives of the will of God, what does she have to believe if she has found it and made of it her food? And what does she have to hope for if she already possesses it by living not outside of God, but in God? Therefore, true and perfect resignation is the mark of sure predestination and the sure possession that the soul has of God. Have you understood? Think it over carefully. I remained as though enchanted, and I said to myself, "Really? One can reach this?" And I almost doubted, saying, maybe he wanted to tempt me to see what I would do, to give me the field to speak more nonsense, and to show me where my pride reaches. However, it is good to speak some nonsense. At least one pushes him to say something, and receives the good of hearing his voice, which restores one from death to life. And I kept thinking of what other nonsense I could say. At that moment he moved again and added, "It is you who want to tempt me, not I you. And besides, stop doubting about my truth." And he kept silent. I felt confused, and I kept thinking of what he had told me. But who can say everything? These are things that cannot be expressed. End of the reading. The 6th of November 1909, Volume 9. The privation of Jesus purifies and consumes the soul. I was lamenting to Jesus because of his privations, and making himself seen for just a little, he told me, "My daughter, the cross unites the soul ever more closely to me. These privations that you suffer make you fly above yourself because, not finding the one whom you love in you, life becomes boring to you. All the things that surround you annoy you, and you have nothing on which to lean. The one on whom alone you used to lean seems to be missing in you, and therefore the soul keeps flying and flying until she is purged of everything to the point of being consumed. And in these consummations, your Jesus will give you the final kiss and you will find yourself in heaven. Aren't you happy?" End of the reading. The 6th of November 1914, Volume 11. The good that the hours of the Passion produce for Jesus and for the soul who does them. As I continued the usual hours of the Passion, my adorable Jesus told me, "My daughter, the world is in continuous act of renewing my passion, and since my immensity envelops everything, inside and outside the creatures, I am forced to receive from their contact nails, thorns, scourges, scorns, spits, and all the rest which I suffered in the Passion, and still more. Now at the contact with souls who do these hours of my Passion, I feel the nails being removed, the thorns shattered, the wounds soothed, the spits taken away. I feel compensated by good for the evil that the others do to me. Feeling that their contact does no harm to me but good, I lean more and more on them. Furthermore, returning to speak about these hours of the Passion, Blessed Jesus said, "My daughter, know that by doing these hours, the soul takes my thoughts and makes them her own. She takes my reparations, my prayers, desires, affections, and even my most intimate fibres, and makes them her own. So rising up between heaven and earth, she does my same office, and as co-redemptrix, she says to me, Ecce ego mite me. Here I am, send me. I want to repair for all. I want to repair for all, answer to you for all, and plead good for all." End of the reading. The 6th of November 1926, Volume 20. Jesus promises to bring Louisa to heaven when he has completed his manifestation. The new apostles of the Fiat. How one who lives in it centralizes the heavens, the sun, and everything within herself. I was feeling all oppressed under the weight of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how I longed for the celestial fatherland, in which I will no longer lose sight of him. I will no longer be subjected to the hard martyrdom of feeling myself dying without dying. Now, while I was tired and exhausted of waiting, my sweet life, my dear good, my sweet Jesus, moved in my interior, but all afflicted, as it seemed he was sending chastisements over the earth. And in order not to give me more pain, he did not want me to see them. But from the way I saw him, I understood the chastisements he was sending. And sighing, he said to me, "My daughter, courage. Let me finish manifesting to you what is necessary regarding the kingdom of my will, so that nothing may be lacking in order to form it in the midst of the human family. Then after I have completed everything, I will quickly bring you into our fatherland. Do you think that you will see the full triumph of the kingdom of the eternal Fiat before coming to heaven? It is from heaven that you will see its full triumph. It will happen to you as it happened to me with the kingdom of redemption. I did everything that was needed. I formed the foundation. I gave the laws and the counsels that were needed. I instituted the sacraments. I left the gospel as the norm of their life. I suffered unheard of pains unto death. But while being on earth, I saw little or almost nothing of the fruits and of the carrying out of redemption. After I had done everything and had nothing left to do, I entrusted everything to the apostles, that they might be the criers of the kingdom of redemption, so that the fruits of the works I did for the kingdom of redemption might come out. The same will happen for the kingdom of the supreme fiat. We will do it together, my daughter. Your pains, your long sacrifices, your incessant prayers that my kingdom may come soon, and my manifestations about it. I will unite everything together with me and will form the foundations, and once I have completed everything, I will entrust my kingdom to my ministers, so that like second apostles of the kingdom of my will, they may be the criers of it. Do you think that the coming of Father de Francia, who shows so much interest and who has taken to heart the publication of what regards my will, came by chance? No. I myself disposed it. It is the providential act of the supreme will that wants him as first apostle of the divine fiat and proclaimer of it. And since he happens to be the founder of an order, it is easier for him to approach bishops, priests and people, also within his own institute, in order to proclaim the kingdom of my will. This is why I assist him so much, and I give him special light, because in order to understand my will, it takes great graces, not little lights but sun, to comprehend a divine, holy and eternal will, as well as great disposition on the part of the one to whom this office is entrusted. And then the daily coming of the priest, I myself also disposed, that I might find quickly the first apostles of the fiat of my kingdom, so that they might proclaim what regards my eternal will. Therefore let me finish first, so that, after I have completed it, I may entrust it to the new apostles of my will, and you will be able to come to heaven, to see from up there the fruits of the longed-for kingdom of the eternal fiat. Then I continued to do my usual acts in the supreme volition, and I thought to myself, my poor mind goes around through the sea, through the sun, through the heavens, everywhere, in order to follow the acts that the adorable will does in the creation. But once I finish going around, I always find myself down below, in my hard exile. Oh, how I would like to remain at least in the blue heavens, to do the office of a star for my Creator. But I would disappear in the midst of the stars, because I am neither beautiful nor shining like the stars, and so they would all put me out, hurling me down to the bottom, my long exile. But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, my daughter, one who lives in my will lives in the unity of her Creator, who keeps with himself in his unity the whole creation. And just as he keeps the creation, so does he keep in his unity the soul who lives in the eternal fiat. And this unity brings her all the reflections of her Creator, as well as his unity with all creation, in such a way that the living image of he who created her can be seen in the soul. And by maintaining his unity with all, he keeps her in the reflections of all the things created by him. And these reflections form the sea, the sun, the heavens, the stars, and all the enchanting varieties of nature in the depth of the soul, So the soul who lives in my will, placed in the azure heavens, would be the most beautiful ornament for this azure vault, such as to astonish heaven and earth. She would have all within herself her Creator, a heaven, a sun, a sea, everything as her own. Nor would she lack even the earth, all flowery, and the sweet singing of the birds, bearer of the joy and of the harmonious music of their Creator, because each created thing contains a divine note. Therefore, instead of hurling you down, they would aspire to keep you in their midst, because among the many prodigies that my will contains, it has the power to portray all of our works in the soul, and to centralize all of its acts in her. It is not content if it does not see its own beauty in the soul, if it does not find its echo, its joy, and all of itself. End of the reading.
All to Jesus I surrender, all to Him I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him, in His presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Saviour. I surrender.
The 6th of November 1927, Volume 23. One who lives in the divine will does not descend from her origin, and to her is due the state of queen, while one who lives outside of it lives in the state of servant. Difference between what the kingdom of redemption brings to one and to the other. How those who live in the divine will be the first before God. How the cross matured the kingdom of redemption. How a divine life runs within each truth. I was following the divine volition, accompanying all the acts that my sweet Jesus had done while being on earth. He made them present to me, and I invested them with my I love you, and asked him with his very acts for the kingdom of the divine fiat. And I prayed him to apply to my soul everything he had done in the kingdom of redemption, to give me the grace to live always in his divine volition. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, one who lives in my divine will does not descend from her origin, and since everything was created for those who would live in it, all the goods of creation are hers, that are more extensive than the goods of redemption. In fact, to one who maintains herself in the state of origin by living in the supreme fiat is due the state of queen, and as queen it befits her to possess. More so since she is a queen who lives in the royal palace of our will, and therefore it befits her to possess kingdoms, suns, heavens, seas, and that the king himself live life together with her, making his queen happy as she makes her king happy. This is why the goods of creation were to be more extensive. Otherwise, how could hers be the state of queen if she did not have dominion and kingdoms to dominate? On the other hand, by not living in our divine will, the soul descends from her origin. She disennobles herself and places herself in the state of servant. Therefore no kingdoms or empires befit her. More so since in redemption I came upon earth in order to resurrect man from the state of death, to heal him, to give him all possible remedies, to make him return to the first state of his origin, knowing that if he returned into our will from which he came, he would already be prepared to be maintained in the royal state of dominant. Even more, you must know that for those who live or will live in it, the acts that I did in redemption will serve not as remedies, but as happiness, as joy, and as the most beautiful ornament in the royal palace of my will. In fact, everything I did was nothing but a birth from it. Its merciful womb delivered for me onto the lap of my humanity all the acts I did in coming upon earth. Therefore it is right that as things that belong to it, they serve as ornament for itself. So in everything I did while being on earth, if I prayed, if I spoke, if I suffered, if I blessed the children, I kept tracing my children, the children of my divine will, to give to them the first act, the things that belonged to them, the happiness that they contained, and then I gave them as remedy for their salvation to the unfortunate children of sin, servants of the human will. Therefore all of my acts ran as first act to those who would live in the supreme volition, as to their centre of life. So one who lives in it can say, everything is mine, and I say, everything is yours. After this I was thinking to myself, if the divine fiat has its first act in such a way that no one else can say, I am first act of it, how can those who will come later to live in it find themselves as first act before God, if the first are already there? And my divine Jesus added, my daughter, those who live or will live in my volition will all be like first act before God, because my will has one single act, an incessant act that starts always from the first act. And by virtue of this single and incessant act, it elevates all the acts done in it to its first act, in such a way that all those who will live in my volition will find themselves in its one act, and all as first, before the adorable Majesty. Therefore, in my will, there will be neither before nor after, but all will be fused together in one single act. What honour, what glory for the creature, to be able to have her place in this single act of the will of her Creator, from which, from a fount, all goods and all possible and imaginable happinesses gush forth. Then, continuing to follow the acts of my beloved Jesus, I stopped when he received the cross, and embracing it with all the tenderness of his love, he placed it on his shoulders to carry it to Calvary. And Jesus added, my daughter, the cross matured the kingdom of redemption. It completed it and placed itself as a custodian of all the redeemed ones, in such a way that if one lets herself be kept by the cross, she receives within herself the effects that a mature fruit contains, that contains taste, sweetness, and vital humour, and makes her feel all the good of redemption, in such a way that she matures together with the fruit of the cross, and disposes herself to return into the kingdom of my will. In fact, who has disposed you to live in it? Has it perhaps not been the cross of so many years that matured you like a beautiful fruit, took away from you all the bitter tastes that the earth contains, all the attachments of creatures, and converted them for you into divine sweetnesses, placing itself as guard, so that nothing might enter into you that would not be holy, that would not give of heaven? The cross, making all the vital humours flow within you, has done nothing other than form your Jesus in you. And your Jesus, finding you mature, forms a kingdom of his divine will in the depths of your soul. And taking the attitude of teacher with all love, I spoke to you about it, and still do. I have taught you its ways, the life you must conduct in it, the prodigies, the power, and the beauty of my kingdom. You must know that every time your Jesus decides to manifest a truth, my love for it is so great that I bilocate my very life in each truth I manifest, so that each truth might have the power to form a divine life in creatures. See then what it means to manifest to you one truth less or one truth more. It is to put out a divine life at risk, to put it in danger, because if it is not known, loved and appreciated, it is a divine life that does not receive its fruit and that does not receive the honours that befit it. This is why I love so much the truths I manifest, because it is my life that runs within them, and I greatly love that they become known. How different is my operating from that of creatures! If they speak, teach, operate, they do not leave their life in the word and in the work. Therefore they do not grieve too much if their words and works do not obtain their fruits. On the other hand, I grieve very, very much, because it is life that I make run in what I manifest. End of the reading. The 6th of November 1929, Volume 27, Jesus, Centre of the Creation. The Word, outpouring of the soul, the value of it. Who is the bearer of the works of God? My abandonment in the fear continues, and it seems to me that all of creation and the many works it encloses are my dear sisters, but so bound to me that we are inseparable, because one is the will that animates us, and everything that Jesus did while on earth forms my life, and so I feel as though needed with Jesus and with all his acts. So I felt myself surrounded by everything, and in the midst of all things I could see my sweet Jesus, taciturn, though in the midst of so many works everything was silence, and he had no one to whom to say a word. The most beautiful works were mute for him. Then, drawing me to himself, he told me, "My daughter, I am the centre of all creation, but isolated centre. Everything is around me. Everything depends on me. But since created things do not have reason, they do not keep me company. They give me glory. They honour me, but they do not break my loneliness. The heavens do not speak. The sun is mute. The sea tumults with its waves. It murmurs tacitly, but does not speak. It is the word that breaks loneliness. Two beings who in words exchange their thoughts, the affections and what they want to do. This is the most beautiful joy, the purest feast, the sweetest company. Their secrets, manifested in words, form the dearest harmony. And if these two beings blend in their sentiments, in the affections, and one sees his will in the other, this is the most pleasant thing that can exist, because one feels his life in the other. Great gift is the word. It is the outpouring of the soul, the outpouring of love. It is the door of communication. It is the exchange of joys and of sorrows. The word is the crown of the works. In fact, who formed and crowned the work of creation? The word of our fiat. As it spoke, the portents of our works came out, one more beautiful than the other. The word formed the most beautiful crown for the work of redemption. Oh, had I not spoken, the gospel would not exist, and the church would have nothing to teach to the peoples. The great gift of the word has more value than the whole entire world. Now, daughter of my divine volition, do you want to know who breaks my loneliness in the midst of so many works of mine? One who lives in my divine will. She comes into the middle of this centre, and she speaks to me. She speaks to me about my works. She tells me that she loves me for each created thing. She opens her heart to me and speaks to me of her intimate secrets. She speaks to me of my divine fiat and of her sorrow, for she does not see it raining. And my heart, in hearing her, feels in her its own love and sorrow. It feels as though portrayed again, and as she speaks, my divine heart swells with love, with joy, and unable to contain it, I open my mouth and I speak at length. I open my heart and I pour my inmost secrets into her heart. I speak to her about my divine will as the only purpose of all our works. And while I speak, I feel true company, but a speaking company, not mute, a company that understands me, that makes me happy, and to which I can pour myself. Has everything I have manifested to you about my divine will perhaps not been outpourings of love, transfusion of life that we did, one into the other, and that while I would speak to you, served to entertain us and to form the sweetest and most pleasant company? A soul that lives in my divine will is everything for me. She makes up for the muteness of my works for me. She speaks to me for everything. She makes me happy, and I do not feel lonely. And having someone to whom to give the great gift of my word, I am no longer left as the mute Jesus who has no one to whom to say a word. And if I want to speak, if my fiat is not there, I will not be understood, but the Jesus who speaks and has his company. Then my poor and little mind kept wandering within the divine fiat. My lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, my divine will simplifies the creature. It empties her so much of everything that does not belong to it, that nothing else is left of the human being but a complex of simplicity. Simple the gaze, the word, the manners, the steps. The mark of the divine simplicity can be seen in her as though in a mirror. Therefore, when my divine will reigns on earth, pretense, lie, that can be called origin of every evil, will no longer exist, while simplicity, as origin of every true good, will be the true characteristic that will point out that here reigns the divine will. Now you must know that our love for one who lets herself be dominated by our divine fiat is so great that everything we want the creature to do is first formed in God himself, and then it passes into her. And since her will and ours are one, she keeps it as her own act, and she repeats it to us as many times as we want. So one who lives in our divine volition is the bearer of our works, the continuous copier and repeater. With the eye of light that she possesses, given to her by it, she fixes upon her Creator to see what he is doing, in order to absorb it into herself, to say to him, "I want to do nothing else but what your adorable Majesty does." And we feel twice as happy, not because we are not happy without the creature, since in us happiness is our nature, but because we see the creature happy, who by virtue of our will comes closer to our likeness, loves with our love and glorifies us with our own works. We feel that the creative power of our fiat reproduces us and forms our life and our works in the creature. End of the reading.
All to Jesus I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken, take me, Jesus, take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all.
6th of November 1932, Poem 31. How God does deeds and not words. One who works in the divine will works in eternity. One who works outside of it works in time. The words of Jesus are works. My little mind felt filled with the sweet lessons of my lovable Jesus, and worried I wanted to provoke doubts and fears, even though I know that when Jesus wants to, he makes the soul reach where he wants and how he wants. Nor are there laws for him, nor does anyone dictate laws to him, nor does he pay attention to human opinions. On the contrary, he always does new things in order to confound them. Nor does one take a step ahead of the power of his love, whoever they may be, for however many doubts and difficulties they can say and do. On the contrary, if one makes a joke of them, he lets them remain in their idle talk, and he does the deeds with the soul whom he has elected. But with all this, my fragility remembered my sorrowful circumstances, and I felt myself shake, and I said, who knows how many doubts they will make over Jesus' way of speaking, and I felt all afflicted and oppressed. But Jesus, who watches over my poor soul, repeating his little visit, all goodness, said to me, Blessed daughter, do not give a thought to anything. My will has the virtue of making everything that does not belong to it die, and of changing into life of light the same weaknesses and miseries of the creature. Everything I have told you is not in virtue of the creature, but in virtue and by the power of my will that can do everything. My will is symbolized by the sun, that as it rises it puts to flight the darkness and makes it disappear and die. And since it invests the earth, it gives to all things its life of light. The same for my will. As the creature lets herself be invested by the power of its light, the darkness leaves her, her evils die, and are changed into life of light. And one who does not understand what this means, that one is illiterate, and therefore does not understand what my will is, nor what it can do, nor where one who lives in it, and who lets himself be vested by its light, can reach. Therefore let them talk. I do the deeds, and they will remain with words. If they have not made a profound study of it, why do you want that they understand? Perhaps they are learned, doctors of other things, but of my will they will always be ignorant. Therefore set them aside, and let us think of doing not words, but true deeds. You must know that one who works in my divine will, her works, her acts, her adoration, her love toward God, are done and formed within eternity, because my divine will is eternal, and everything that one can do in it does not escape from within eternity and remains forever confirmed in works, adorations, divine and perennial love. They can be called works of the creature transfused in God, by which God himself has operated. The human does not enter either into the divine volition or into eternity, and if it enters, it must lose its life in order to reacquire the life and works of God himself. So one who lives in our volition becomes looked at by us, not in time but in eternity, and for our decorum and honour, her acts must be our acts, her love our love. We feel that the creature comes into our volition in order to give us the occasion of letting us work, and of giving her our love, in order to love us with our own love. Everything must be ours, and everything that she does must be coined with the image of her Creator. On the other hand, one who works outside of my divine will works in time, loves, adores in time, becomes looked at in time. And everything that one does in time are works without confirmation. Instead, they must await the judgment in order to be either confirmed or condemned, or else purified by the fire of purgatory. And they are looked at as works of creatures in which the fullness of sanctity, fullness of love, and fullness of infinite value can be lacking. It is all the contrary for one who lives and works in our will, being our act. Everything is fullness of sanctity, of love, of beauty, of grace, of light, and of infinite value. There is such distance between the one and the other that if all would understand it, oh, how attentive they would be to live in out of it, our volition, so that they would remain emptied of the human act and filled with the operating act of a divine will. Therefore be attentive, and do not do anything that is not drawn and emptied by the light of my will, and you will give me the greatest contentment of putting me to work and of letting me work like the God that I am. Therefore I always await you in it in order to take the step to meet you, to extend my arms to you, so that it may work in you, to open the mouth and keep me with you in sweet conversation, in order to manifest to you the ancient secrets of my supreme fiat. After this, I was thinking about everything that my highest good Jesus had told me, as if doubts and difficulties wanted to arise in me. And he, with an indescribable mastery, told me, "My good daughter, do not marvel about what I tell you. Everything is possible for my will. The impossible does not exist for it, provided the creature lets herself be conducted by it. Everything is done. You must know that everything I tell you serves to form order, serves to form order and harmonize the kingdom of my divine will. I am repeating the way that I had in creation. I pronounced the fiat, then I was silent. And although they say days, at that time days did not exist. Therefore they even be called epochs, in which I formed the great machine of the universe. I spoke and I worked, and so much was my pleasure with the work that my word produced, that with one fiat of mine it disposed me and enraptured from me another fiat of mine, and then still another, even to such that my fiat only stops when I see that nothing lacks to its work. On the contrary, everything was sumptuousness, beauty, order and harmony, and in order to enjoy my works, I remained as life and at watch over my same fiat. With its power, my same fiat bound in me my works, and I remained inseparable from them. Everything is in pronouncing my first fiat, to give my first lessons, to deposit in the soul the power and the work of my fiat. And when I have begun, I can say I won't stop again until the work is complete. What would you have said if I had made creation only halfway? It would not have been a work worthy of me, nor an exuberant love of mine. Therefore one fiat draws me and another enraptures me. It forms the void in the creature for where to place the order and the harmony of my operating fiat. It disposes her and imposes itself over me to make me give other lessons, so as to be able to form many acts together that, united among themselves, form the new, more beautiful creation, more artful than the machine of the universe, that must serve for the kingdom of my same will. Therefore, every word of mine is a work. It is one more outlet of love. It is putting an end to my first begun fiat. Giving each other a hand, the first and last that will be pronounced, they will form the braiding of the new creation of my kingdom in the depths of the soul, that transmitted to posterity will be bearer of more than the universe itself, of goods, of sanctity, and of graces to the human generations. See, therefore, what one word more, one word less, one lesson more, one lesson less means. They are works, but if they are not received nor taken account of, my fiat is not drawn, and enraptured to pronounce other fiats, therefore will not be complete. And I will wait and repeat my lessons, and if I repeat them, it is a sign that you have not kept track of what I have told you. I do not want that anything lack, because everything that I must tell you about my will has been established. Therefore, be attentive and let me do what I want. After this, I was thinking about what was written at the beginning of this chapter, that is, that one who works in the divine will works in eternity. One who works outside of it works in time. And I thought to myself, and why this great difference? And my highest love, Jesus added, my daughter, it is easy to understand. Suppose that you were given a metal of gold, which in working it you formed many beautiful objects of gold. But then instead of gold, you were given a metal of copper, of iron. You could not change the copper and iron into gold metal. Therefore, you would make objects of copper, of or of iron. Now, compare the objects of iron with those of gold. What is the difference of value? And yet you have employed the same time in working them. You have made similar objects, but because of the difference of metal, those of gold will exceed in a surprising way in value, in beauty, in finesse, those of iron. Now, one who works even good with her human will, as she finds herself passing her way in time, one can say that everything she does are temporary works, subject to 1,000 miseries. They will always be human works of minimum value, because she lacks the gold thread of the light of my will. On the other hand, one who works in it will have the gold thread in her power. And not only this, but she will have her Creator operating in her act. She will not have time, but eternity in her power. Therefore, there is only difference between the divine will and the human. There is no comparison that holds up between the one and the other. To live in my will is exactly this. It has the prime and operating act in the creature. My will acts as a teacher and who wants to develop the theme that he has given to his student. He gives her the paper. He places the pen in her hand. He puts his hand over the same hand of the disciple, and he develops the theme, the hand of the teacher and that of the student writing together. Now, couldn't one say that the teacher has been working and has put in that theme his science, his beautiful writing, in a way that no one can find a shadow of defect? And yet the student has not gone out of place. She has undergone the work of the teacher. She has let her hand be conducted without any resistance. On the contrary, she is happy in seeing the beautiful ideas, the precious concepts in which she feels enraptured. Now, couldn't one say that the fortunate disciple possesses the value and the merit of the work of her creature? The same happens to one who lives in my will. The creature must undergo the act that my volition wants to make. It must not be put aside, and it must place the necessities befitting its divine act. And our goodness is so much that we make her possessor of our same acts. On the contrary, for one who does not live in our volition, it happens as when the teacher gives the theme to his disciple, but does not become actor of the theme of the disciple. He leaves her free. In a way, she can make some errors, and she does it according to her little capacity, because she does not feel him over or inside of herself, nor the capacity or the operating act of her teacher. And the theme is nothing other than our grace, that never leaves the creature, even in the little good that she does. And according to the dispositions of the creature, it lends itself either as operating act or as assisting act, because there is no good that one does that is not aided and sustained by divine grace. End of the reading. The 6th of November 1938, Volume 36. One act in the divine will encloses and embraces all. All that the creature has to do is in God. How the human acts find the divine acts. My poor mind feels transported by a supreme force in the sea of the divine will, and no matter how I travel around in it, I can never do it all. Its immensity is such that my littleness cannot see it or embrace it all, and no matter how long I walk, because of its great immensity, I seem to have done only a few steps. So I remained amazed at my sweet Jesus, surprising me with his short little visit, told me, "My daughter, my immensity is unreachable. The creature can never embrace it all, and no matter how much we give her of ourselves, she is like little drops compared to our immensity. It is sufficient to say that even one single act of our will is so huge as to surpass all possible imaginable beings. It encloses and embraces everyone and everything. Therefore, when the creature offers her act to be invested by our will, the glory we receive is so great that it occupies the whole creation. The creation, in fact, is without reason, while the act in which the creature lets us operate has the fullness of the human reason, that, invested by the divine reason, surpasses heaven, sun, and all else. So if the glory we receive is great, the love we receive in return is almost incredible, and the good that the creature receives is incalculable. As soon as she gives us her act and we make it ours, all things want to give themselves to her. The sun with its track, the heaven with its immensity, the wind with its power and empire. All things find a place in that act and want to donate themselves so that their God may be glorified with the fullness of the human reason which they do not possess. Then Jesus was silent, and I was thinking to myself, how is it possible that just upon entering the divine will, our acts acquire such a good? And Jesus added, "My daughter, this happens in the simple and natural way because our divine being is very, very simple, as well as our acts. Now, you must know that everything good the creature was supposed to do has been done, formed and fed by our divine volition. One can say that her acts exist and will exist in it. They are as lined up in order, each with its place in our will. Even more, they are first formed in us, and then in time we deliver them to light. Now, upon entering our will, the soul finds what is already hers, and we want her to take it. So the human acts find our divine acts, established by us for her. They fling themselves, they transform themselves, kissing and locking themselves inside our divine acts, possessing them already. So the human becomes divine. Since our divine act is great and immense, the human act, so small, feels as if it is dissolving in the divine, as if it is losing its life. But this is not true. The little life exists. The human reason is dissolved in ours, locked in ours, occupied by ours, with great honour for itself and great glory for us, who gave ourselves to the creature. Playing with the little atom of the human will, we make such prodigies of love, glory and sanctity as to astonish the whole of heaven and earth. We feel rewarded for having created the creature with the whole creation. You must know that everything the creature does in our will remains written in our fiat with indelible characters of light. These are acts that, with their infinite value, will have the power to give the creature her kingdom. Therefore we wait for these acts to be performed. They will return so much love and glory to us, and so many graces to the living creatures, as to even up the sides between creator and creature, and let our will reign in the middle of the human family. One act in our will is so great that we can do and give everything. After this he added, My daughter, as the soul enters my will, she finds all the truths that I manifested to her and that she has learned about my will. When they were revealed to her, she received the seed of each of them, so she feels their possession. Now as she enters it, she feels those truths within herself, but she also finds them in my fiat. They are like many queens who take her by the hand and bring her higher up in God, by letting themselves be more known and by giving her new light and graces. My truths form the ascent through which to reach God, and God, seeing this creature rising toward his arms, feels so much love that he then descends into the depth of the creature to delight in his truths and to strengthen and instruct her on how she has to live her life in those truths that she has learned. We can say that the soul and God form a divine society, working together and loving with one love. Now you must know that the acts done in my will unite all times, making one single time. There is no distance among them. They are so much centered within each other that, although innumerable, they form as one. So much so that within my will one loves and adores, uniting all times. They are found all together with the very acts that innocent Adam did when he loved and worked in the divine fields of our fiat. All acts are incorporated with the acts of love of our Supreme Being, that have the power to centre themselves in all, to take their place of honour everywhere. They can say, wherever my will is, that is our place. These acts, done in our will, are provided with divine virtue. Each one possesses a new happiness, a new joy, so that the creature can form in her own acts innumerable joys, content, and endless happiness. She can form by herself a paradise of delights and beatitudes, in addition to the one that her Creator can give her. This is natural because when my will operates within us, as well as in the creature, it makes rise the fullness of its joys and delights, investing all it does. Possessing by nature ever new seas of infinite joys, it cannot operate without generating new joys and new delights. Therefore all things done in my volition acquire by its virtue the joys of the celestial creatures, the inseparability of all the goods. All times are mine, and I make only one time out of them. What a joy in being able to say, I myself form my own paradise, because the divine fiat worked together with me. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.